I'd like to take you a little ways back in time, all the way back to 2001. You're 5 years old and it's Saturday morning. You just woke up, got out of bed, got breakfast, and turned on the TV. The World Trade Center. No, we're not doing that. The newest season of your favorite TV show is playing its first episode, and you're greeted with one of the sickest intro themes you've heard in your short time watching TV. Power Rangers Time Force. Racing to another time, Chronomorphers are online. This show is so cool. The big robots, the explosions, the creepy mutant villains. You especially like the green one, because he's green, and you've recently decided that green is your new favorite color. You don't really remember the last show on account of you being 4 years old when you watched it, but you're pretty sure you like that one too. You're pretty sure you're also gonna like the next one. You're pretty sure you're always gonna like Power Rangers. You'd be correct. And you'd be me. Which is kind of weird, because I'm me, and I'm not you. Anyway, my name is Gaijin Brian, and from about as early as I can remember, I've watched pretty much every season of Power Rangers as it was airing, and for the most part, I really enjoyed the series. However, as my stupid, dumb, idiot child brain began to expand and not only think about things, but think about how I thought about things, I began to feel like these newer seasons just didn't really have the same magic as previous ones. I think Operation Overdrive was the last season of Power Rangers that I actively enjoyed watching, and even then I didn't really vibe with it that much. And then Jungle Fury came out, and it was just kind of lights out from there. I still kind of kept up with the new stuff. When a new season would come out, I would watch a few episodes here and there, and I checked out the designs for the suits and the Megazord, but it never really felt the same. Nothing was going to compare to watching Countdown to Destruction or Forever Red, and honestly, I was kind of okay with that. I had the shows that I liked, and I stopped engaging with the new stuff. I still loved the franchise, but I'd aged out of the demographic, and I just kind of thought that was how it was supposed to go. Let's fast forward to 2023. A lot's changed by now. For one, I'm no longer a stupid, dumb, idiot child, and instead, I'm a stupid, dumb, idiot adult. But more importantly, I just finished watching Shin Kamen Rider in theaters. I had heard a lot about this Kamen Rider thing before, but I never really thought to look into it. I knew Saban had tried to make an American version of the show like they did with Power Rangers, and I knew that that show was really bad. So I didn't really have much interest in watching it. That is, until I heard that the guy who made Evangelion was making his version of Kamen Rider, and that sounded really cool. And boy, let me tell you, it was so cool. It was super edgy and campy, and it reminded me of what I thought Power Rangers looked like when I was younger. I saw it during a limited screening with a few friends, and they definitely enjoyed it as well, but I could tell that I had gotten something out of it that they didn't. Fast forward slightly further into 2024, and I'm talking in a Discord server for my favorite internet sketch comedy group, Loading Ready Run. They have a whole channel dedicated to talking about tokusatsu, which is a specific kind of filmmaking that originated in Japan, centered around live action special effects. And boy, there is a lot to talk about. See, tokusatsu actually consists of a lot of different properties you've probably already seen or heard of. Notably, Kamen Rider is a tokusatsu, but so is Power Rangers. Not only is Power Rangers a live action special effects show, but if you weren't already aware, Power Rangers gets the vast majority of its fight scenes, costumes, monsters, megazords, and sometimes entire plot points from another long running Japanese TV show, Super Sentai. Tokusatsu also includes Godzilla, Ultraman, Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, and if you want to extend your definition beyond Japan, you could even consider shows like Supernatural or Doctor Who to be tokusatsu, and this is barely scratching the surface of this almost century-old genre. I spent the next few days talking with the folks in this group to gather opinions and recommendations on where I should start my re-entry into this sort of new to me, sort of old to me world. Eventually, I settled on something, and I don't want to sound dramatic, but I think that this choice may have altered the course of my life going forward. So, let's talk about tokusatsu. After a ton of videos, discussions, and arguments involving proper nouns that I didn't really understand, I decided to start my tokusatsu journey with arguably the biggest and most prolific work in the genre, Kamen Rider. Before I go off on my rant about this show, though, let me give you a little bit of background information for it. Kamen Rider was created back in 1971 by Shotaro Ishinomori, a mangaka who had worked under Osamu Tezuka and helped with his work on Astro Boy. Ishinomori created a ton of hugely popular works outside of just Kamen Rider, notably Super Sentai and Cyborg 009. While Ishinomori didn't create the genre or invent the concept of ordinary people transforming into heroes, he's often credited as perfecting and popularizing the formula. Kamen Rider has been hugely influential in Japanese media and global media as a whole. Stuff like calling out named attacks and striking poses during or after a transformation are hallmarks of Kamen Rider, and there has been an uncountable amount of direct or indirect references to the series across hundreds of movies, TV shows, and video games. I really don't think I'm exaggerating here when I say that our modern media landscape would look wildly different if Kamen Rider hadn't been made. At time of writing, Kamen Rider has been going strong since 1971 outside of a small hiatus in the 90s, and the next series, Kamen Rider Myth, was just announced a few days ago, and I'm really excited to see more about it, but we're not talking about the future right now. I had gotten a ton of recommendations on where I should start with Kamen Rider, and a lot of different shows really jumped out to me as good first options, but only one could be my first Kamen Rider, my gateway back into this world that I had left so many years ago. So I listened to the ancient wisdom that had been passed down through the ages. Just watch the one you think looks cool. That led me to a show that permanently changed my brain chemistry and may have given me a bigger appreciation for brass instruments. Kamen Rider Double follows a pair of detectives, Hidari Shotaro and Philip, who combine to form the titular masked hero, Kamen Rider Double, in order to solve mysteries and fight against the evil organization known as Museum that's been causing trouble in the fictional Futo City. Shotaro is a hot-blooded and excitable detective trying to live up to the title left for him by his former mentor. He does most of the boots-on-ground work, finding clues and conducting investigations. Meanwhile, Philip is more reserved and collected, but he has a tendency to obsess over something until he learns everything he can about the subject. Philip has the ability to access the Gaia Library, which houses the collective knowledge of the entire world, but he's unable to search for anything on his own. Because of this, Shotaro provides Philip with the clues that he finds in order to narrow down their search and find the right info they need to solve their cases. Our main characters are accompanied by Akiko, the daughter of Shotaro's former boss, who was given their agency and his will after he was killed by a museum. Akiko is a pretty childish girl, despite being the same age as our protagonist, and she mostly serves as comic relief. But I really like her, and her interactions with our main characters is what initially compelled me to continue watching this series when I first started it. Double also has a pretty sizable cast of recurring side characters, and they're all really fun to watch on screen, as well as Museum's members being really memorable villains. As far as my experience watching the show goes, dude, when I tell you that this show punched me all the way back to being 10 years old, I mean that in the best way possible. I was genuinely so mad at myself for not starting Kamen Rider sooner. The suits, the character design, the music, the fight choreography, the camera work, all of it was 10 out of 10, no notes. Not only was this show checking every box for the person that I was currently, I am positive that if I had watched this show when I was a kid, I would have been obsessed with it. I could not watch this fast enough. I'm pretty sure I watched the whole thing in like a week. I could not stop talking about this show, and I have been actively trying to force my friends to jump onto this show as often as I can. After I finished Double, I immediately started watching more Kamen Rider. Next was Gaim, a show about breakdancing fruit-themed samurai. Then 01, where a failing comedian is left his dead grandfather's AI robot development company. Then Kamen Rider Amazon, all the way back from the 70s. I was totally hooked, not just on Kamen Rider, but tokusatsu as a whole, and I was starting to look for more shows to satiate my newfound hunger for men in spandex and rubber suits. After some window shopping, I came across a video by Markusatsu, where he introduces Garo, a tokusatsu aimed at a more mature audience, coincidentally created by a former Kamen Rider producer, Keita Amemiya. Where Kamen Rider had typically been pretty bright and cheerful, Garo was dark, both visually and metaphorically, and very focused on horror. I finished watching Marcus's video, and I pretty much immediately knew that Garo was what I was looking for. A really nice change of pace from the tone of Kamen Rider, while still giving me the same campiness and over-the-top action that I was expecting. More importantly, Garo gave me new context for what kind of stories and themes are possible with tokusatsu. You can argue that something like Kamen Rider Kiva is horror themed, but it's still a kid's show at heart, Meanwhile, Garo was made for adults. When I say that, I mean people are getting like ripped in half and decapitated, and there's a lot of nudity, like a lot, which I'm not really complaining about. I'm just making observations here. As for what it's about, Garo is a little bit more complicated than Kamen Rider. You see, Garo is actually not only the name of the series, but also the name of the mythical warrior that the main characters transform into. Similar to Kamen Rider, Garo has a few different storylines following different main characters as they fight against evil. The seasons that I have watched so far have mainly told the story of the Saejima family, a lineage of mystical knights, not that kind, who pass down the title of Garo from generation to generation, fighting against horrors, evil spirits that invade our world from the Makai realm, by possessing or making dark deals with humans. Dude, this show is so cool, and it has some of the best fight choreography I've seen in a long time. Garo was started in 2005, and the first couple of seasons follows Saejima Koga, the latest inheritor of the mantle of Garo, as he protects Kaoru, a young woman that horrors are being drawn to because of an incident that Koga is kind of responsible for. This show has such a cool and unique look to it, with a lot of the scenes or effects having a watercolor or ink painting aesthetic to them. Meanwhile, the music is super enjoyable, and all of the characters are really fun to see interact on screen. At least as long as you can handle Koga being maybe the angstiest Seto Kaiba lookalike you'll ever see in your life. We also have Gonza, Koga's butler and childhood caretaker. He might honestly be my favorite character in the whole series, as well as Zaruba, a magic talking ring with a smart mouth that Koga uses to detect and locate horrors. Speaking of Zaruba, he's actually voiced by the lead singer of Jam Project, a band that's done the intro themes for a lot of different shows, like One Punch Man and Dragon Ball Z. But more relevant to this show, they also do the second intro theme for Garo. Also, Javi is here. We love Javi. I love Javi. If you're looking to get into something a little bit more mature from tokusatsu, I cannot recommend Garo enough, especially if you want something a little bit spookier to watch around Halloween. And like I said, just like Kamen Rider, there is a bunch of different places you can start with Garo. I've only watched the Saejima storylines so far, but there's also an anime and a whole other alternate reality kind of thing going on. It's honestly kind of a lot. So at this point, I have watched a few different Kamen Riders and at least 2 seasons of Garo, but I still felt like something was missing, and then it dawned on me. There's a very popular tokusatsu series that I have just been completely neglecting the entire time, and I think it's finally time that I paid it the attention that it deserved. No, not you, Ultraman. I don't like you, Ultraman. What I'm actually talking about is the initial series that technically started my love for tokusatsu all the way back at the beginning. Power Rangers Super Sentai. Of course it was Super Sentai. It was always Super Sentai. But the question I needed to once again answer is, where do I start? Like always, I got a ton of answers from a ton of people, and they're all conflicting. Shinkenger is the best one. Gokaiger's Perfect Anniversary series. Bokenger exists. Naturally, I made the only possible choice that made sense to me, and started with what people have told me is the worst possible option to start with. Avatar Senshi Dawn Brothers. And man, I almost regret my choice, because once you've seen Peak, nothing else compares to it. I don't think I've ever been more confused by the beginning of a show in my life, and that feeling honestly never really went away. But at some point, maybe due to Stockholm Syndrome, maybe due to brainworms, it went from none of this makes sense, and that really bothers me, to none of this makes sense, and that's the best part. Dawn Brothers gets so absurd at points that I needed to pause an episode sometimes and just think about something else for a few minutes before I subjected myself to more of it. But by the time this show is over, it had easily become one of my top tokusatsu shows, if not one of my top shows of all time. Like most Sentai shows, we follow a team of brightly colored heroes fighting some kind of group of bad guy or monsters. Unlike most tokusatsu shows, the main cast of Dawn Brothers are all kind of insane. First, we have our Red Ranger, Momoi Taro, which, by the way, we're doing a Momotaro theme this time in case that wasn't apparent from the suit designs. He's a being from a higher dimension that was just kind of dumped into Japan as a baby. Also, if he tells a lie, he actually just dies. Our Blue Ranger is Saruhara, an unemployed monk who is so sure in his belief that money is inherently evil that touching it causes him real actual pain. Next is our Pink Ranger, Kijino, who is the first male Pink Ranger of the series. He's a totally normal guy who loves his wife so much that he will genuinely try to kill you if you say something bad about her. Then, there's the Black Ranger, Inazuka, who is a wanted criminal who is constantly on the run from the police. And finally, there's Haruka, who is the Yellow Ranger. She's a high school manga prodigy, and she might actually be the only normal person on this team, as long as you don't let her drive a car. I would honestly love nothing more than to explain the plot of this show to you, but I really don't know if I can. There is just a lot of stuff going on. People turn into dogs, a guy starts talking to a doll, something about origami, and there's some unconfirmed homosexual tension. Just watch it. You'll either bounce off of it real quick, or you're going to discover your new favorite show. As I wrap things up, I'd like to talk about one final show. One that, in and of itself, isn't technically tokusatsu, but rather is about tokusatsu. That being Tokusatsu Gagaga. For me personally, this show hits really close to home in a way that I didn't think was going to be possible. This show follows Kano Nakamura, a typical 20-something-year-old Japanese woman working at a generic office job, but when she's at home, she becomes absolutely obsessed with tokusatsu. She's got the figures, the posters, she records the TV specials, the whole thing. The entire show is centered around her trying to balance her need to find and connect with people that also love these shows, while trying to avoid being outed as the worst thing possible, a nerd. As the show progresses, we see that in her childhood, Nakamura was forced to give up her love of tokusatsu, and how she was conditioned to think that simply loving the things that she enjoyed was somehow wrong, and needed to be hidden from the world. At the same time, we watch her meet a colorful cast of fellow geeks, nerds, and weirdos that show her and the audience that people are at their brightest when they are allowed to be true to themselves. I'm going to talk about some spoilers for the ending of the show for a second, so if you want to see it for yourself, which I really would recommend, you can go ahead and skip to the timestamp on screen right now. In the final episode of the show, we're given a flashback of Nakamura walking home from her high school graduation party. She stops by an old VHS shop and sees the final episode of Emmer Jason, her favorite TV show from when she was a kid. She has a short conversation with the shopkeeper who ends up gifting her that VHS, saying, "It's hard to forget about what you love, isn't it?" She rides her bike all the way back to school to watch the tape, because she knows if she brings it home to watch it, her mom is going to freak out again. As she sits there, re-experiencing the things that she loved so much as a kid, all of these memories come flooding back to her, ending with her speaking to the TV screen through tears, saying, "Feelings of love never really disappear. I am so happy I found you again." That sounds pretty familiar to me. Watching this show made me really understand why I was so excited to watch tokusatsu again. It felt like a piece of me that had been missing for a long time finally found its way back to me. When I was a kid, I didn't even really know what tokusatsu was. I just knew that I really liked Power Rangers and VR Troopers and Beetleborgs and Mystic Knights. Now, I'm much less of a kid, but I still love all of those things and so much more. Getting back into these shows has led me to meet some really cool people, watch some really fun TV, and shed a shocking amount of tears over what are ostensibly kids' shows. People really like to throw around that one quote from C.S. Lewis that says, "When I became a man, I put away childish things." But those same people really like to leave off that very next line that says, "including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up." Just because something may have been made for kids does not mean that only kids are allowed to enjoy it. Something becomes for kids when kids enjoy it, and it becomes for adults when adults enjoy it. Are video games for kids? Is reading comic books for kids? Or are they simply things that kids happen to enjoy that you are allowed to enjoy as well? If I could have you take away anything from this video, it's to just go back and experience the things you used to love so much. If not for you, then for the kid that used to love them. I really think that one of the worst things that happens to us as we grow up is that we lose touch with the things we used to enjoy. Changing taste is one thing, but often people just let go of their hobbies and pastimes because they feel like they're not allowed to like them anymore. Go watch your favorite TV show from when you were a kid, or that book that you used to really like when you were 10. Play that game that you got for your birthday when you were 12. You never know. You might find something you didn't even realize you missed. Hey, whoever you are, I really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. I haven't really done one of these before, so this was a very new experience to me, and it was fun. I might make another one at some point about tokusatsu again, or something entirely different. I really don't know. We'll see. If you like this video, share it, like, comment, subscribe, whatever the YouTube things are. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just happy to be here, man. You know what? In the comments, tell me your favorite TV show or game or whatever from your childhood. Let's do that engagement farming thing. Can you tell that this part is unscripted? Once again, thank you for spending your time with me. I don't have an outro or anything like that because this is my first YouTube video. So I'm just gonna end it after this. Bye.